Guys, I know this is the second Hunter build video in a row. My tiny mains are wondering, what the hell am I doing? The reality is that Strand Tines are just so good, it's hard to really recommend anything else. But for our Hunters, we have variety. Now today's build is one that has been around, but it has gotten better over the course of the past year. And it technically doesn't require any special artifact mods. So you're gonna be able to use and abuse this build for forever, or at least until some sandbox changes come our way. Now this build utilizes one of our favorite bows, a bow that everyone hated inside of PvP, but at the same time, we absolutely loved it inside of PvE. Now, what's even better about this build is that it's simple, it's easy to use, it's beginner friendly, and it keeps you alive. Again, a lot of the builds get hung up on the offensive output, but we know when it comes to in-game content, survivability is so important. Now, starting off, we're gonna be on the Void subclass. Your abilities and super choice is completely up to you, although I don't recommend Spectral Blades. Personally, we like using Deadfall Tether, Suppressor Grenades, and our Gambler's Dodge. As for our aspects and fragments, you're gonna want Vanishing Step for that classic invis on dodge. Also Stylist Executioner, where defeating a weakened, suppressed, or volatile target grants invisibility and true sight. After performing a Stylist Execution, your next melee attack, while invisible, weakens targets. Now this aspect is crucial for any build revolving around volatile or spreading any void debuff at all, which is why it's one of the best aspects in the game, essentially giving you constant invisibility if you build around it. Now for our fragments, we have Echo Persistence to give those void buffs, that being Invis, Devour, and Overshield, a longer duration. Echo Starvation, which will grant you Devour when you pick up an orb or a Void Breach. Remember, Void Breaches grant class ability energy when you pick them up as well. And Devour is such a good void buff, restoring your health to full, granting grenade energy, and here extending Devour on every final blow. So if you're constantly going Invis and then constantly benefiting from Devour, you've got a ton of survivability here. Tack on our third fragment, Echo Vigilance, and now you've got a free overshield anytime you get a kill when your shields are depleted. Now this overshield duration is also extended by Echo Persistence. Now as far as the fourth fragment goes, we'll leave that up to you, as there's lots of options that make sense, but not one that stands out much more than the others. There is a few choices you can pick though. Echo Cessation, which will spawn a Void Breach when you defeat volatile targets. This will be happening a lot. Most of your kills with this build will be against volatile enemies, but its main perk makes your finisher final blows cause enemies nearby to become volatile, which is a very nice addition. Echo of Harvest will also spawn an orb and a Void Breach when you defeat weakened targets. Now this is really good if you're using your Snare Bomb, and if you're also using some of the artifact mods that we're going to be talking about later. Now all of the Hunter Void supers can weaken as well, so this fragment will benefit alongside them too. Now if you choose a Lingering Grenade instead of Suppressor, you've got Echo Remnants, which will increase their duration. Fragments we don't recommend using are Echo of Explosion, especially if you're using Suppressor Grenades, as you won't be scoring many kills with those, and Snare Bomb, as they're mainly about suppressing and weakening versus dealing damage. Also, Echo of Instability is not required because you'll be gaining volatile rounds infinitely without it. Now moving on to our weapon of choice. Lo and behold, La Monarque, the bow that Bungie just can't seem to stop giving ornaments to. It comes with the trait Poison Arrows, where arrows fired quickly after a full draw become poison arrows, and precision hits with poison arrows stun combatants and spread poison to nearby ones. It is strong against overload champions. It also has a catalyst granting it Unrelenting, where rapidly defeating targets trigger health regeneration. Guardians and powerful combatants count as more than one kill. So you see the survivability here, guys, being baked in just the catalyst itself. So what this build really boils down to, guys, is constant invis, constant devour, overshields, and unrelenting, taking safety and protection to a whole nother level. Now, La Monarque actually saw a good bit of changes for PvP as well as PvE as we launched into Season 22. And these were all net benefits inside of PvE. They reduced the draw time from 684 milliseconds to 612. Now, they did things like reducing the body shot damage inside of PvP, as well as affecting the crit multiplier. They also reduced the damage over time burn time from 3 seconds to 1.75 seconds. But in the process, they increased damage over time burn damage against players from 1.875 to 2.5 per tick, which was an increase in PvE by 50%. Now, these were our pre and post damage values. You've got 1,282 pre-Season of the Witch and 1,923 post-Season of the Witch. Now, the arrow damage did drop because of the draw speed, but the total damage was pretty much the same, just slightly higher in Season 22. So you see where things level out. The main takeaway, though, is that your draw time is faster. So not only is your total damage pretty much on par, if not slightly better, but you're dishing out damage even faster now. So overall DPS improved this past season. And these numbers will only increase even further when we start tacking on mods in our exotic armor piece for this build, which is none other than Gyrfalcon's Hauberk. Look, how many builds have we made with Gyrfalcons? I know, but it's just so good with void weapons. This exotic has been one of the best hunter exotics ever since its arrival in Season of the Plunder. It comes with the perk See Me, Feel Me, where your void weapons gain volatile rounds after you emerge from being invisible. And when you're invisible and defeat a combatant while using a finisher, all of your weapons gain a bonus damage buff of 35%. Also, you and nearby allies gain a reserve overshield and improved class ability regeneration. These reserve overshields can be deployed by using a class ability. Now, the main takeaway for this, guys, is that you're really going to be primarily using volatile rounds. That 35% damage buff is a little too hard to take advantage of, as it's only a 5-second duration. It's nice, but you only got 5 seconds to blow your load somewhere. For some weapons, that's okay, but for a bow, not so much. Also, you have to do the finisher while you're invisible. So again, the main benefit here is, of course, volatile rounds. Now, with La Monarque, Stylus Executioner, and Gyrfalcon's Hauberk, you can begin to see the main gameplay loop of this build. Stylus Executioner will make you go invisible when you defeat a weakened, suppressed, or volatile target, and your snare bomb or super can actually start this off by weakening. Suppression grenades, if you're using it, can suppress to start that chain, eliminate that suppressed or weakened enemy, and then you'll go invisible. Then when you come out of invisible, La Monarque will gain volatile rounds thanks to Gyrfalcons, and those volatile rounds will make enemies volatile, making you invis yet again when defeated. And the cycle just continues. Or you can just start the entire loop by just simply using Vanishing Step to go invisible immediately, and you've got lots of options here. Now, before we get into the mods for this build, I do want to go over artifact mods. Like we've said before, you don't really need artifact mods for this build to work, but since we still got a good stretch of this season left, you might as well take advantage of them. But first off, Bungie really wants us throwing these elemental orbs. Like, they really want us to use them. And I guess you might as well use them, guys, as you'll be generating void orbs while you're getting void kills with La Monarque. You see, elemental orbs void will do that. You don't have to interact with these orbs at all, but you might as well generate them because why not? Next up, you have Semi-Auto Striker. This makes it so that if you have fewer than 2 stacks of armor charge, rapid precision shots with bows, sniper rifles, or scout rifles generate an armor charge. Now, we're utilizing armor charges and a bow with this build, so this is essentially free armor charge. We also have Monochromatic Maestro, where dealing elemental damage increases weapon damage matching that element. This damage bonus is a 10% buff and lasts for 5 seconds, and you'll be able to keep this up pretty frequently. Lastly, we have Rapid Fire Ranger, which makes it so that rapid precision hits against distant combatants weakens them for a short duration. And considering we're using a bow, you're going to be at distance pretty much at all times, unless things are rushing you. But this is a great way to apply a free weaken debuff to tack on more damage with La Monarque. Plus, that weaken fits perfectly in with this build. Now, as for our mods, you have Harmonic Siphon for generating orbs on rapid kills with La Monarque, and you can actually slide on 2 of these if you want. Gloves, we have Focusing Strike to grant us class ability energy when you cause damage with a melee. We also have Impact Induction for a reduction in grenade cooldown when you cause damage with a melee. Now, for our chests, we have any resist mods that are applicable for whatever activity you're going in. Boots, we have 3 Void Weapon Surge mods to give La Monarque and its poison damage that 22% damage buff when you have armor charges. And the reason why we're using 3 of these instead of 2 is because our survivability is already so high. We don't need recuperation. We don't need better already because we're essentially going invis and getting devour at all times. Now, class item, we have Bomber for that reduction in grenade cooldown, Outreach for reducing melee cooldown when using our class ability, and Powerful Attraction to collect nearby orbs automatically when using your class ability. And that's really the build, guys. The gameplay loop is insanely simple. You start the domino effect of Stylus Executioner and Gyrfalcons by either going invisible first or by using your abilities to debuff enemies, then kill them to go invisible. When you come out of invisibility, volatile rounds will be granted to La Monarque, which in turn will make enemies volatile, which cause those big explosions. And again, with everything happening here, you're spreading constant poison, you're spreading constant volatile explosions, you're getting rapid chain kills left and right, generating orbs and possibly void breaches, depending on the fragment that you chose. And these orbs that you're picking up will then be granting you that 22% damage buff to your La Monarque, which is, by the way, doing more damage this season after its rework. Again, I can't tell you how many people come by the stream thinking that La Monarque got nerfed in PvE. Fellas, it was a PvP nerf only. PvE, it's doing better. Now, in terms of damage here at Coral, if you were to take into account that 22% damage buff from Surge mods, total damage per shot will be 28,330 damage. Now, if you do manage to sneak in that Gyrfalcon's finisher damage, which is that 35% damage buff on top top of surge mods, you're looking at 38,239 damage here on Carl. But again, it's a tight window. It's more likely you're just going to be taking advantage of surge mods, and occasionally you may get a finisher in there. Do note that Volatile itself doesn't do a lot against single targets. It's an explosion that deals 9,170 damage to Carl, but we're not adding them into these totals because it would take another arrow to actually proc that explosion. But what's so good about Volatile is that explosion will hit groups of enemies, and then Monarque's poison will then spread that Volatile even more, which is what creates those chain reactions. Now, we can't forget everything that's keeping us alive here. You've got orbs, you've got void breaches, which is giving us Devour, and you literally have constant invis with the duration of that invis, as well as the duration of Devour and all overshields being increased thanks to Echo of Persistence. And these overshields come in clutch when you get a kill when your shields are depleted, which is why even Echo of Vigilance here is worth using. And just to top everything off, guys, Monarque itself is proccing health with Unrelenting as its catalyst. A lot of great things here, guys. This is a bow that definitely terrorized the inside of PvP for so very long, but it only got nerfed in PvP. PvE, it is better. It is performing better, and it has artifact mods this season that only make it better. Dim links down below if you just want to plug and go. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.